Hey everyone, welcome to the first ever Bacon mock draft. I do this every year for those that know me for fantasy mock draft. This is the first time I've actually created a video. Partially for you guys, mostly because I literally cannot wait until this draft starts. I've thought about going to the Arctic and freezing myself. It's about 3 weeks away. I'm just so excited. The off seasons, of course, is way too long. So I have some questions from you guys, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. Okay, let's get right into it. First overall pick, Tampa Bay. The no-brainer decision here is Jameis Winston. To me, it's a bad year to have the first overall pick because often when you have a team like Tampa that has a ton of holes, you have to go address the quarterback position. Everybody kind of focuses on whether they have an Andy Dalton or better, and if so, then they kind of leave the QB position alone. If they have worse than Andy Dalton, him being the bar, of course, then they need to address the position. To me, it's a no-brainer. Jameis Winston is the best prospect in the draft, regardless of position. He has off-field issues, and Tampa knows that they have to deal with a PR nightmare, but he's the pick there. No-brainer. Number 2, Tennessee. A lot of people are talking about Marcus Mariota here. It does make a ton of sense because they need something to make the Titans extremely relevant. They need to give back to their fan base. Ultimately, I think Mariota is not a can't-miss prospect. They need a slam dunk, even if it's less exciting. They take the best player on the board, and that's Lenny Williams. Lenny Williams, kind of like a Gerald McCoy. The guy is an all-around amazing player. Some people question whether or not he could be a pass rusher, a consistent pass rusher in the league. I'm not so sure, but I think pairing him with the guys that they have there, Darrell Casey, as I know, is a rising star there. It's a no-brainer decision. They will get a ton of offers, but ultimately, I think they stick it out. They take Lenny Williams, and then assuming that Lenny goes to Tennessee, then the draft goes like this. Number 3, Jacksonville is going to take the best Leo pass rusher that fits Gus Bradley's system, and that's Dante Fowler, defensive end from Florida. The guy's unbelievable, can rush the quarterback. Jaguars have done a ton of things on offense, but certainly they entertain Kevin White here or Amari Cooper to give Blake Bortles a true number 1 threat, but I think ultimately they go defense with Dante Fowler. Number 4, Oakland. Obviously, I'm biased here. If Lenny Williams were to fall, I'd say they should take Lenny and then address the wide receiver position in round 2. Lenny, assuming Lenny's off the board, which I am going to do so, I say Oakland takes Amari Cooper, wide receiver, Alabama. And this was a question that I will address later on, but if any other team picks a wide receiver first, I think the wide receiver that'll be picked first will be Kevin White from West Virginia. But if Oakland picks wide receiver first, it'll be Amari Cooper. They need a safe pick. The guy has amazing hands, crisp route runner, really smart kid, and he has a much larger sample size. 3 consecutive seasons just dominated. I'm going to say Amari Cooper's the pick. Here's where it gets interesting. Number 5, Washington, the ultimate wild card pick. For me, they beg for a trade down, and I think they find it. I think the St. Louis Rams from 10th overall calls them, and I think Cleveland will call them. But Cleveland has 2 first-round picks, the 12th and the 19th spots. I know there's some talk of Marcus Mariota going to Washington. They have a ton of holes that they need to fix, and RG3 is still there for a reason. They trade with Cleveland. So Cleveland is on the clock at number 5. Cleveland takes Marcus Mariota. It doesn't matter how many first-round picks it takes to get a quarterback. You fight and you endure it until you get that quarterback. Despite the press or the fan base, you need to address the quarterback position. They've clearly moved on from Johnny Manziel. Marcus Mariota is a pick to Cleveland. Number 6, the Jets. Pissed off as hell that they didn't get Mariota. I think they go the best pure pass rusher for Todd Bowles, of course, new head coach. Vic Beasley from Clemson. The guy's absolutely dominant. I've watched a couple games this past season before. The way he comes off the edge, he's extremely quick, extremely powerful. I think second to Dante Fowler, he's the best guy on the board. So it's a no-brainer decision. And then that leads me to number 7. Chicago probably wanted Vic Beasley. I think they go Shane Ray defensive end slash outside linebacker from Missouri. Shane Ray, to me, is very much like a Khalil Mack type of guy. He can kind of go every snap with his hand on the ground, a hand in the dirt, or he can stand up as outside linebacker. The guy is bit too one-dimensional for me because he's just rushes the passer. I don't think he's been dominant in coverage, but I think he's the pick. Chicago Bears defense was a joke last year. Kyle Fuller, last year's first-round pick, will do well, but ultimately they need to address a pure pass rusher to go alongside with Darnell McPhee that they got from Baltimore, which was a great pickup in free agency. Number 8, Atlanta. They wanted a pass rusher. I know there's talk of Todd Gurley. I think it's too early for that. Especially the depth at running back this year. I think Atlanta goes Brandon Scherf, offensive tackle, Iowa, to protect Matt Ryan. Number 9, the Giants. Their safety position is atrocious. But I think what we've learned from previous drafts, Mark Barron to Tampa Bay, Michael Huff to Oakland, you don't draft an in-the-box safety at the top 10 picks, in the top 10 picks in the draft. So New York sitting at number 9. I think they take the best defensive player that's not a safety. That's Danny Shelton, nose tackle, from Washington. What a beast this guy is. Extremely fast, extremely athletic, very quick, gets to the quarterback, very disruptive. I think that's the pick right there. Number 10, St. Louis Rams at number 10. There's some talk of Trey Waynes, cornerback. I think they need a pure number 1 wide receiver. Tavon Austin is not the guy. Brian Quick, I know the fans love him. Kenny Britt, he did really well last year, but these are 2-3 guys. I think you got to go value, and Kevin White falling to number 10 is an absolute steal. So I'm going to say Kevin White goes to St. Louis. At 11, Minnesota, 50-50. Trey Waynes, cornerback from Michigan State, or wide receiver Devontae Parker. I'd say they go Devontae Parker, similar to St. Louis situation. They have a bunch of guys, but no one's a true number 1. Teddy Bridgewater gets his old college teammate back, which is Devontae Parker. The guy's unbelievable, and he could actually have the highest ceiling out of any wide receivers in this draft, which is really saying a lot. Okay, number 12, Washington on the board. Now, I think the reason why they trade down to number 12 and not further down is because they have a clear need for an outside pass rusher to replace Brian Orakpo. But they know that New Orleans is sitting there at 13 and wants a pass rusher. So I think they traded with Cleveland to get the 12th and 19th spots. With the 12th pick, they take Randy Gregory, defensive end from Nebraska. He's going to fall to 12, I think, because of the drug test, and people think he's just this unbelievable prospect and not a sure thing, which I agree, but the guy could be the next Jason Taylor. So I think for that, the Redskins need to take a homegrown talent. Number 13, New Orleans just missed out, of course, on Randy Gregory. They take the next best guy, which is Bud Dupree, Alvin Bud Dupree, from outside linebacker from Kentucky. To me, he's a bit more of a hybrid player, kind of like a Bruce Irvin, a little undersized, but the potential is kind of limitless for Bud Dupree. Kentucky's not the best college system to learn from, but I think prospect alone is kind of worth justifying the 13th pick on him. Number 14, Miami's dream comes true. They desperately want a cornerback, and they get the best corner available, which is the top number 1 player in the draft in that position, which is Trey Waynes, cornerback, Michigan State. Kind of like a Richard Sherman, but a little bit smaller. He's very aggressive at the line of scrimmage. He's kind of ruthless. I love him. So I think Miami gets a huge win on top of a solid, very aggressive free agency. Number 15, San Francisco. They have a ton of holes to fill. They could go offensive line here. They could go wide receiver. They've certainly lost a bunch of players. I think they need to go defense. And because they lost both of their starting corners in free agency, I think they go the next best corner available, which is Jalen Collins, corner from LSU. A little bit like Antonio Cromartie, rangy cover corner, lanky, but really wins. He wins contested balls. So for me, I think that's a critical thing that I'm sure San Francisco is looking at. Which brings me to number 16. Ton of things that can go here for sure. I saw Jalen Strong potentially going to Houston at 16. I don't think they take another wide receiver in the first round. I think they take the best prospect available, and that's Todd Gurley, running back from Georgia. The guy is hopefully the second coming of Marshawn Lynch. Really an unbelievable player. I think they don't have a franchise quarterback. I think they know that. But they need to buy their quarterback time, whoever is under center, and I think Todd Gurley will do that. San Diego needs to address the offensive line. They go Lael Collins, offensive tackle / guard LSU. I think they have some great tackles. They have King Dunlap there. I know that they have DJ Fluker. I think they can stay outside and keep and put Lyle Collins at guard. 18, Kansas City offensive line. They lost 3 starters, including Rodney Hudson. Went to Oakland, of course. I say they go Eric Flowers, kind of like a Riley Reef, white guy from Iowa. Eric Flowers is from Miami, but kind of country strong, as they put it. I think he'll do great there. Number 19, Washington's second pick. I say they stay defense and take Eric Armstead, defensive tackle from Oregon. Number 20, Philadelphia. A ton of things that they can do here. I know that there's rumblings of Jordan Matthews being the number 1 receiver. He's much better as a number 2. I think it would be stupid to replace Jeremy Maclin, who then replaced Deshaun Jackson. For me, I think they need a true speedster, deep threat guy, and they're going to take the fastest wide receiver in the draft, which is Brashad Perriman from UCF. Number 21, Cincinnati. I think they could go corner or defensive tackle, but ultimately, best player available is DJ Humphries, offensive tackle from Florida. Andy Dalton is not the future. They're paying him like he is, but either way, they need to keep the guy upright. Number 22, Pittsburgh lands the top safety in the draft and the only true first-round talent at that position, which is Landon Collins from Alabama. Kind of like a Dante Whitner, vicious hitter, really good in pass coverage. I think it's the no-brainer there. Detroit, I know there's talk about them taking Melvin Gordon or any other running back if Gurley was available as well, but I'd say they need to take the best left tackle and protect Matt Stafford and whoever's running the football, and they can address that probably in the second and third round. They take Audris Pete, offensive tackle from Stanford. 24, Arizona Cardinals, a couple options there. I think it's possible they trade for Adrian Peterson. Even if they don't, they still have talent at that position. So for me, they're going to be taking an outside linebacker, likely Eli Harold from Virginia. Kind of like Pernell McPhee that went to Chicago from Baltimore. A bit of a hybrid player, can give you double-digit sacks, but you don't build your defense around a guy like Eli Harold. But I still think it's a solid pick. 25, Carolina desperately needs that offensive tackle. They take the athletic one over the physical ones. Athletic one being DJ Clemmings from Pittsburgh. I think he'll be able to run in the second level if it's for Jonathan Stewart, especially to keep up with Cam Newton, which is critical there. They can address wide receiver in the second round. Number 26, the Baltimore Ravens. They could go wide receiver. I think a lot of teams could go wide receiver, but because it's such a deep draft, they'll address it later. They take a corner. To me, they're going to take Marcus Peters from Washington. Kind of like Champ Bailey, but he's unbelievable hands. He had 3 picks last year, which were one-handed, 11 picks overall in college. Smart player, off-the-field issues, but Ozzie Newsome will work him into shape as he normally does, especially with Jimmy Smith. Number 27, Dallas Cowboys. Great string of first-round picks. Corey Smith, this is for you. Very impressed with what they've done. They've avoided spotlight and popular decisions, quote-unquote, and people were rallying for Johnny Manziel. They took Zach Martin, and once again, they were right. So phenomenal history. I think they take Melvin Gordon, running back from Wisconsin. McFadden could do well. I think he'll do well, but they need a true number 1 young running back. Melvin Gordon reminds a lot of people of Jamal Charles. I think he'll do very well there. Their offense was fantastic last year, so they need to find a replacement for DeMarco Murray. It's that simple. Number 28, Denver. I know they just picked up Antonio Smith that was on waivers. They need to address defensive tackle to replace Terrence Knighton. I think they're going to take Eddie Goldman, defensive tackle, Florida State, kind of like a Darnell Dockett. Strong presence up the middle. He can wreak havoc in the A-gap. I think that's a no-brainer decision there. Indianapolis, they did great things in free agency. Their team is stacked and poised to make another run. Defensive tackle is a big need there. I think they need somebody next to Chapman. So I say they take Malcolm Brown, defensive tackle from Texas, which is a huge win considering most mock drafts had Malcolm Brown going in the top 15 picks. Sorry, I'm terrible at technology and even more unorganized. 30th pick in the draft, Green Bay lost Devon House and Tramon Williams. They could take an inside linebacker here to replace A.J. Hawk, but there's a lot of talent in the later rounds for that. They need to go corner, and Kevin Johnson from Wake Forest is the pick. He's very much like Sam Shields, very tough at the line of scrimmage, and he's great against the run, ton of tackles for loss. Sam Shields happened to play in Green Bay, so he'll be able to teach him. 31, New Orleans. There's a possibility they take Max Williams to replace Jimmy Graham, but I think that would be for the fans. Max Williams, to me, is not a first-round pick. So they're going to take the talent, the next Randy Moss, hopefully for them, which is Dorial Green-Beckham from Missouri. 6'6", an absolute beast, and he will flourish. With him going deep and Brandon Cooks working the inside, that's a great way to make Drew Brees happy, especially, I'm sure he was furious when Jimmy Graham left. And the final pick, New England. Bill Belichick's going to take another player from UConn. That's his trend. He's going to take Byron Jones from Connecticut. The guy was a workout freak, set a world record. People think he looks like Alteron Werner out there. Very smart, great instincts, good size. I don't disagree, and he'll do well, of course, New England, because everybody does well in New England, unfortunately. I have a couple questions here that I can quickly address. One from Corey Smith. Who are my 5 most impact players in the first round? I'm going to go with the not obvious ones, of course, or else I'll just say the top 5 picks. Dorial Green-Beckham, in the right circumstance, if he goes to New Orleans, will flourish. Todd Gurley, wherever he goes, will be phenomenal running back. He could be probably a hair under the next Adrian Peterson, but the talent is certainly there. Danny Shelton, nose tackle from Washington. I'm huge on him. I think he's better than Aaron Donald last year. That's the type of praise that I have for him. I watched a bit of film, but I read a ton of reviews on him, and the guy is a solid pick. So if Giants get him at number 9, that'll be a huge victory for them. Trey Waynes, cornerback, Michigan State. This is not the draft a couple of years ago when D. Milner was the first corner taken off the board. Trey Waynes is a legitimate player, and I think he'll be a top shutdown corner for years to come. And Devontae Parker, as I mentioned, has the highest ceiling, in my opinion, even more so than Kevin White. If he's with Teddy Bridgewater, he can do some serious damage. From Smedge, will Jameis Winston steal more seafood if he's drafted by Tampa Bay? It's tough. I don't think you can get a ton of crab legs in Tampa, despite what some people might think. But he'll find a way, so I'm going to say yes, and he's going to have a ton more money. Number 3, from Neil Poudney. A couple good questions here. Number 1, Randy Gregory, biggest boomer bust pick of the draft. How much will his failed test hurt his draft position? I think it will, only because there's so much talent out there at that position. Vic Beasley, Dante Fowler, of course, Shane Ray, that Randy Gregory will fall, and he will not be a top 10 pick. And he's definitely the biggest boomer bust pick in the draft, probably tied with Dorial Green-Beckham to me. Next question from Pouts. Which wide receiver will be first off the board? As I mentioned, Kevin White will be the first wide receiver taken in this draft, unless Oakland is the one that picks a wide receiver first. In that case, I believe Amari Cooper from Alabama will be the pick. Third, where will Mariota land if not Tampa? Does Tennessee make the move at number 2? As I mentioned, there's a ton of sense for that to happen. Mariota will single-handedly dictate the draft. Whatever happens from 2 on to 20 will be directly impacted by Mariota's selection, either for a trade up or a trade down. Tennessee can make the move. If they want to please their fans, they take Marcus Mariota. But I think there's a 60% chance he goes at number 2, but it will not be to Tennessee. That's what I'm saying. It could be a trade out from Cleveland if they're paranoid. It could be the Jets trading up to number 2, and the whole goal of this is to take Marcus Mariota before number 6, because number 6 is the Jets are on the clock and they're taking him, no doubt about it. So if he doesn't go second overall to Tennessee or swing a deal, then the picks of Jacksonville at 3, Oakland at 4, Washington at 5 have tremendous value, and that's the main reason for the average fan to watch the draft this year, to me. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Go Raiders, of course, and let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'm total dust. This is the first time I've ever done this, so if it's a waste of your time, then flip me an email and I will be sure to not respond. Bye.